Oh man, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocate. That is two woeful performances on the trot. Ten Hag needs to make his money now, doesn't he? Maybe that might push United into perhaps signing or looking into the window before it closes. I was hoping, as I was saying backstage to Marcus, that it was going to be sort of like a tale of two halves, really. Probably should have taken our opportunities in the first. Absolutely woeful in the second half, absolutely outplayed, and very disappointing in the end, wasn't it, Marcus? I hope you're well, buddy.
Yep.
Great to have you back. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester United are like the football manifestation of Dr. Jekyll and Hyde. You literally see two different versions of the same human being in a game of football. And it's frustrating, if only because Ange Postecoglou has been there for what, a few weeks now. He only had one preseason with Spurs, signed a lot of no-name players that many people don't really know what they're about, and they're playing an identifiable brand of football, and they're actually winning games. Granted, it's only two games, so we can't overreact, but it's just frustrating. Even watching a team like Brighton play the way they do after losing Caicedo, after losing Cucurella, after losing so many of their top players, and then you've got Manchester
Mm-hmm.
United, who have signed three new players, have spent a ton of money on this team, and it's the same old mistakes. Granted, we did play well in the first half. We had more shots, more total touches than them in the opposition box. And despite them hitting the post two times, I believe we did create more chances than them. So it was a good first half, at least first half an hour. That last 20 minutes of the first half is debatable. But then the second half just completely erases that, and I don't even know where to begin. I don't want to just sit here and blame individuals because it just looks like a team issue at the moment, particularly that midfield. But yeah.
So, talk to me about the midfield then, because I saw a massive improvement, certainly in contrast from the first game.
Yeah.
But obviously, today in the first half was decent. I felt
Yeah.
that sort of
Yeah.
Mount was dropping back and sort of being that sort of link up man. Um, I did say it a few weeks ago, and I'm surprised we haven't seen this in the first two games. But would. I thought Bruno would sort of drop deeper. We saw him do that quite often last
Yeah.
season, at
Yeah.
least, and then allow Mount to go forward. I haven't seen any of that, and it's Mount that's dropping back.
Yeah.
Would you say? Are you surprised by that? Would you say that from on paper, at least, from what we can see, would be the best combination for the midfield three? Because I don't think he's going to change that unless we get another midfielder in. McTominay
Yeah.
probably isn't going to have much of a look in. But what are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting because today, specifically, just focusing on today's game, I noticed that Mount was dropping a lot deeper in the first half, and I actually thought Mount had a decent game. Unpopular opinion, but I actually thought Mount wasn't to blame for today's performance, even though everyone was terrible in the second half. Specifically in the first half, I thought Mount was all right. To be fair, and I thought weirdly enough, Bruno had one of his best like opening half an hours we've seen in a while.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
the Rabona to Rashford was
Mm,
absolutely nasty.
mm,
But it's I think this is where football fans oversimplify football a little bit because people will complain about the midfield and complain about how bad we are in transition and stuff like that. But again, I look at Wan-Bissaka, I look at Luke Shaw on the front post, and the both opportunities where Spurs hit the post in the first half. That to me is not down to the midfield.
mm, mm.
When you
Yeah,
play a
agree.
high line and you're pressing really high, and the first two box to box midfielders get pressed through, there's going to be a lot of space in a high line. That's going to happen. So then the onus is on your fullbacks and your centre backs to make sure that they're covering their angles, and it's like they weren't doing that. Martinez also wasn't at his best today. He was playing Son onside a lot of times today. Like he just
Hmm.
wasn't holding the line, not as sharp as he usually is. So
Hmm.
as much as I do think the midfield is an issue, I don't think it's just the midfield. Like, just fix
Hmm.
the midfield and the team suddenly is fine.
I
I
do
think,
agree with that. I think people are
yeah,
too focused on that, and because there was a huge gap in that midfield in the first game, it's one game, guys. You know what I mean? It's very
yeah,
easy
yeah.
to really sort of pick up on that. Um, Kai, thanks for joining us, buddy. Really, really good to see you, my man. I hope you're well. Um, Talk to me about the midfield from your perspective. Better today, we've said. A few gaps in the second half, a lot of gaps in the second half. I feel like I'm ready to feel a little bit of wrath. Talk to me.
Yeah. How's it going, guys? Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys.
Good
Good
to
to
see
see
you,
you,
man.
Marcus, Mr. Reese. Nice headphones. Um, for me, it is squarely down to the midfield. Unfortunately, for me, I'm simplifying it so much because the only thing the opposition has to do is put someone who has slightly more energy and someone who likes to keep the ball at their feet, and then we completely struggle. And for me today, I think the two Spurs players were just playing it just around the corners, just through the corners, and then they switched the play, just through the corners, and they switched the play. And like I'm not sure Yves Bissouma is that good. Do you know what I mean? Like today he was playing like he is Rodri. Like, and we were just it was like no one could get anywhere near him. Even Mount. Mount would go shadow side to go to the blind side to go try and press him. He gets turned back this side. By the time he gets to the left side, he gets turned that side. Casemiro would go do the same. He would go to the right hand side. Before he knows it, he's been turned already.
Yeah.
And that happened too often. And for me, that's the issue because I think Casemiro is a year older and we can't run away from that. And then when we see that the next substitute is Ericsson to come and save that, then you can clearly see that we just don't have the tools. We don't have the resources to compete with a midfield that just says, "Hey, we're gonna put some legs in there," and then good luck. And the thing is, it's just been like that for 3 4 years, and even when, for example, we had Fred, but Fred needs to be about 10 centimeters taller, and he and pretty much just maybe 5 kilograms, heavier. And then he becomes one of those players at the other teams, which always look to boss us in the
Yeah.
midfield. And these are some guys which go on to have some really bad games. The next 6 7 8 games, they just disappear and they don't have as good games. But against United, it's just that. And I think, yeah, that whole gap between Bruno, Mount, and Casemiro, for me, it's just it's too wide. Um,
Can I just also
yeah,
add in, sorry, like, and this is where Fred doesn't get credit from the fan base, because how many times did we see Fred, whether it was under Solskjaer or under Ten Hag,
Hmm.
come in big games, and actually our midfield looked semi-functional, especially
yeah,
off the
Yeah.
ball.
true,
Like
true.
the,
Yeah,
the the game that comes to mind is Man City at Old Trafford. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah. No, you're right. And the thing is, I mean, and I think the point which I was just trying to make is, I think if we have a sort of defensive midfielder who can do what Fred can do, but is of a larger frame and is also younger and also likes the ball. Because the thing is, you can see none of our players are enjoying playing with the ball at their feet. It's like the moment it comes, it's got to go, even when it doesn't even need to. I saw Bruno at one stage complaining to tell someone to just run, and that was after we hadn't had possession for like 5 minutes. What is the rush in that? So yeah, for me it's squarely down to the midfield because the gap just widens between what others have and what we have. And we'll play Chelsea, and you will see, because Enzo Fernandez is so good, and then you'll see what Caicedo will do because our midfield won't be able to cope with that, with that many legs. But anyways, I've spoken too much, but that is all I see. I used to play midfield. I used to play six as well, and all I see is just this gaping hole in there. And I'm just like, please help Casemiro. Don't. It's not like save him or anything, but at least go help. Help the guy to at least not be on the back foot the whole time.
You say you played a six. He's still available. We might need
Hey,
it.
listen, my knee's gone, fam.
Fair enough.
so
We
you,
won't. We won't ask you then. No, brilliant stuff, Kai. Thanks, Mark, as well. I'll come to you in a second, Reese. Get your comments in, guys. Get liking, get subscribing, all that jazz. We will be doing some different previews at some point soon, and both Kai and Marcus probably will feature in a lot of those alongside your man Stu and a couple of other people. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Reese, thank you so much for joining me, buddy. Sorry it's been a while to get you in here. I really appreciate you coming in last minute. Was it a problem for you in midfield again today? Were you disappointed in any other particular players that might not be within those midfield three?
I'll be honest, mate. I was just disappointed the whole game. Like I was just like the whole game. Like was it was a joke. Like hanging in the nicest way possible. I mean, like obviously being more respectful to you, of course. Language, of course, being respectful. It was a complete joke. I look at the whole performance, and we were only good for about 35 minutes, and that's not good enough. I said it on the preview show the other night. If Pedro Porro's playing, then forget it. Like he was the best player in the field for me. Like I look at the whole entire performance, and we were flat in midfield. The attack was again non-existent. The defense, best part of the game was solid, but they weren't communicating. Like, mate, that's our season in terms of the league. For 2 games in, and we've already wasted ample opportunities. Like, if we do not respond against Forest next, I will be really concerned because that was not good enough. Like, Ten Hag again, like good manager, but that's 2 games in a row. He's made decisions that are quite costly. If it's any other manager, and we all know this, we're all active on social media. If this was any other manager, they didn't ask questions. He really needs to be careful of his decisions. The midfield has to change. That cannot continue going forward.
So you talk about the first half and 35 minutes. Obviously, we played well. That was the same midfield three. Obviously,
and then
massive
I don't know what the hell
last
happened.
week. Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. What do you think changed in that second half that caused us so many problems?
I think Tottenham just decided, well, that's the end of it. Like United have had a chance to settle in. We've played the ball around as much as we can. We've played side too much. It's clear that Man United are not going to come at us. Let's just go direct. I think Tottenham just decided we're just going to go direct to them, and they played right through us through the middle. They very rarely played side to side in that second half. The first half, they were pretty much playing to see if United would do anything. United didn't, so they were like, well, fine. That's how it's going to be. Let's just right through them. And they steamrolled us.
Can I just add that I think Postecoglou also figured it out at some stage, because what he just figured out was just there was actually one midfielder the entire time. So there was no one tracking the third man ever.
Yep.
Every single time the white man got the ball, then you just saw this guy running like this, and you just look at him running, and you're just screaming. You're like, track him, track. Before you know it, it's through again, and then third man run, square pass, and then chance. And it just kept on happening. Even on Luke Shaw's side, you see it happening, and you're like, no, don't follow that. And you see it happening like this, and it's almost like the other teams play like a symphony when they're doing that, and we can't track any of that movement. But Marcus, sorry.
I also would like to add that for me, I haven't seen anyone talking about this on my timeline, but for me, it's also just how terrible we are in the final third. Now, I know to some people that doesn't make sense because it's like, what does that have to do with the defense? Well, if you hold possession,
can I just quickly say one thing? Sorry, Marcus. I was going to move on to this next. I felt like our 4 best chances today. Anthony hitting the post, obviously one of a bizarre one, but then of course Casemiro header, Rashford header, Bruno header. And a lot of calls today for a number 9, and same last week. We definitely need one. So finish off your point, obviously, but do you think we'd be better if we had someone like Højlund in to finish those chances?
Yeah, so for me, again, people go on and on about how our midfield gets run through. And that's true. Our midfield definitely is a problem, but there are also other problems that are exacerbating the issue, right? There are always going to be mistakes when you're playing a high pressing system where most of these players are not used to it. Mount was playing out of position at Chelsea. He was playing on the left some weeks. He was playing on the right some weeks. Sometimes he was playing as a 10. When Lampard was there, he was playing as an 8. So this is a player who hasn't really settled into one role, who's coming into a new team under a new coach. It's understandable that he's not going to be able to adapt to everything. Okay, so let's move him out of the way. Bruno is the more advanced midfielder. So when you have a 10 in a team, you traditionally don't expect them to drop back anyways. So that leaves you with just Casemiro. And Casemiro, as sloppy as he was against Wolves, I don't think he was to blame in today's game. And so again, you have to look elsewhere in the team. And for me, the biggest issue isn't just the midfield. It's 2 things. One, the fullbacks were extremely sloppy today. There were so many chances out wide that we conceded that we didn't need to, even in transition, not just, when the ball is near the byline and coming into the box. And then the second thing is, and Kai pointed it out, like our attacking players don't know how to just calm down sometimes. Ironically, there's a lot of football fans, a certain section of the fan base who love complaining about sideways passes and how bad it is. I disagree. Sometimes you do need to learn to play a boring sideways pass and just calm things down, especially when you are under pressure. There's paper airplanes being thrown onto the pitch. The crowd is hostile and you're feeling uncomfortable and you're 1-0 down. You need to just slow things down and say, you know what, let's just pass it between our back four and let's just take some of the edge off and slow them down a little bit. We don't have that instinct, and Bruno needs to take a lot of credit for that, because he's the captain, so he should be leading by example. He should be able to say, guys, okay, I know we want to hit these guys quick in transition, but let's slow down. Forget what the manager says. Let's take control of the situation, at least for the next 5-10 minutes. Let's get a spell of possession going. Then we try hit them as we start to get more momentum. That for me is like a huge problem.
Sorry, Mark, but the problem with also what happens there is, have you seen, like, normally when we get into the progression phase, like that middle third, right? Every time there's a vacuum that gets created. Like the moment like our right back gets the ball, for example, in that area, they get it and then they look forward and no one is making the run over there. No one is making the run over here. Everyone makes that same run. Like the front
forward,
five just go and then they
100%.
sit right like just in front of the back four, whatever, and then they just chill there the entire time. And then there's this big gap over there and there's literally nobody patrolling that. And then you find Bruno's the one playing that pass, but he probably should be the one sitting in one of those spots, occupying maybe a center back or a midfielder or something. And like you said, I think that's also down to the attacking third. Like, what are they doing? Why is everyone doing the exact same thing? Why do we not have third man runs? Why is it not intense? It's not intense as well, right? The fullback gets the ball, and then you see maybe Eriksson or whatever, or someone just strolling their way, but it's like a fake run into the channel. They don't really want to bust their gut to get into the channel to receive and then get smashed maybe by a midfielder, in the back or something. So there is no chance to keep the ball like that, right? Because the next option they have is, oh, okay, no one is coming short, so let's just launch it, or let's do the next thing. And I think it's compounded, with
I get you. The thing is with that, and this segues into the next point quite nicely, because we don't have a focal point and all of the people who play up front generally are wingers. That's why we have to play that way when we're attacking. My thing is, though, and here's where I vehemently disagree with a lot of football fans, because a lot of football fans won't like what I'm about to say. When you look up and there's no one in front of you, pass it back. Pass it back. There is nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned back pass. And I feel like a lot of football fans will hate that, because we used to do it under Van Gaal, where we just used to recycle position. And people are like, what are we doing? It's like, guys, sometimes you just got to be patient. You just got to be boring like that. And I know it's not a popular thing, because other football fans will say, well, no, change the way you're making runs and stuff. Yeah, you could try do that, but I don't think we have the attack to do that right now, because like Rashford is not really somebody who's good at dropping deep into pockets of space. Neither is Garnacho. No. Anthony is extremely one-footed, so you don't want him drifting into central channels to come receive the ball. You want him out wide hugging the touchline. So it's like we don't have a front three that's capable of doing that. And then Mount and Bruno also aren't great at playing through tight spaces. The only other alternative you have is to have your fullbacks tuck in. And for whatever reason, Shaw and Wan-Bissaka just don't do it. They'll start at the beginning of the game. If you watch Manchester United, either one of Shaw or Wan-Bissaka will do a relatively good job of tucking into the midfield, giving Casemiro that support option. But then for whatever reason, as the game goes along, they'll just drift out of position. And it's almost like we're playing a new tactic. So for me, it's like, I think having a focal point in number 9, ironically, would help us progress the ball up the field a lot more, because then we would have that central person who stays and occupies the central channels, and they can then drop deep, and then suddenly that run beyond the number 9 makes sense for Rashford or Garnacho. I don't know if that makes sense, but
why do basically all our front players receive, when in build up, they receive the ball back to goal? Like and none of them are good receiving back to goal. Like everyone is just getting hit in the back to goal the whole time.
That's what it feels like.
And exactly. And I think what you said is a great point. Like the only way to sort of try and maneuver around it is to recycle possession so that more of your players can receive the ball, at least facing the correct way. Right. And that only happens when it's rotation like this. Guys like Xavi never ever receive the ball back to goal because it's dumb. He just knew, what am I going to do next when I receive the ball just facing it? I can't do it. I just have to give it back here.
Also, that's where playing on the half turn becomes a thing, but a lot of our players can't play on the half turn. Ironically, the two who can were on the bench. Ironically, the two who actually can receive the ball and then turn it around and move, like they're on the bench. So it's one of those things where, you really start to realize how important profiles are, I get what Ten Hag is trying to do. I really do get it. I understand it, but I just don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work because there's just so many instances today where, like you pointed out, you have 5 Man United players all making the exact same run. It's Mount, Garnacho, Bruno, Rashford, and Anthony. All of them, 5 of them against 4 defenders making that run. And inevitably, one of them is going to either be offside, or when we do make when we do play the ball properly and we do actually finally get it right, one of them is going to make a silly decision and either not release the ball quickly enough, or they're going to hesitate and run themselves into a blind alley. So, even when it doesn't work, even when it comes off, it doesn't actually work because of that lack of decisiveness in the final third. So it
nullifies,
frustrating.
And like Rashford as well. Like today was one of his poorest games. Like today he was like proper, like I don't want to play center forward type of game. Like it was like he was not. He was
looked
not
frustrated
there,
when he came off.
And it even is worse when your gap between your midfielders and everyone else is so big, because now all you're doing is asking Rashford to go fight, and Rashford is just never going to fight. Like he just back to goal, it's not happening. In the air, it's not happening. And also layoffs, also they don't happen. So it's very confusing at the moment. Like I just thought preseason, work on things, and then we see something. But this is very confusing.
It's not happened that way at all, has it?
It's really,
Can I
really
just say,
confusing.
Reese and I are going to take a break. I'm just going to carry on listening to you two because that was wonderful.
Oh, sorry.
No, honestly, it was great to listen to you. I learn a lot in these things, and I really appreciate that. For those of you interested, United had a higher XG of 1.82 to Tottenham's 147 today, interestingly enough. Anana has come out and said, Tottenham... it's got moved now. I don't think Tottenham were better than us. We made a few mistakes in the second half, but football is not just about one half. We started well, we had chances, but unfortunately we didn't score. If we had scored, the match would have been different. Okay, football is about scoring goals, and we had great chances. We have to continue working. Can I just say, that first half, I was so impressed by Anana. Obviously, he had to make a couple of saves, continued doing so in the second half. Wasn't at fault for any of the goals, but his passing ability, it was so refreshing to watch, wasn't it? Reese, how did you feel about him?
I thought his passing was fantastic, to be fair. When you look at the overall game, it's a contrast to last year. My only thing is that, can we sustain this for the long term? Yeah, that's because I've switched to USB-C headphones, so much better. Just referring to the private chat for anyone in case asking. Background noises, gone. I thought the passing was definitely better. My only concern is it says a lot that his passing was better than our entire team. That gives me a poor reflection when your goalkeeper is your best passer. That's something that really does both worry me and infuriate me. I don't know about you guys, but the passing from the entire team has got to be a lot better than goalkeeper.
Well, I do agree. I think this is obviously a new sort of certainly modern way of playing. But I think in the first half, everybody was pretty good. And obviously after that point, didn't see much of the ball. Anana didn't really get too much opportunity to pass out from the back like he was doing in the first half still. But he's certainly part of that system. Ten Hag has come out and said a few bits and pieces, so I'll just quickly go through those. I like the first half, a very good performance, but we have to score. We created good chances, really good press, and had many chances to score. Penalty shout, 2 opportunities. and more actually. Rashford had 2, didn't he? Trying to dink it over the goalkeeper and he saved it. And really, I know it was very even, I would say, pretty even, but we should have been out of sight, out of mind, and it could have been very, very different. You've got to take your chances. He talks about the penalty as well, or the potential penalty at Ten Hag on the handball shout. Absolutely a penalty, changes the direction of the ball. I've got to be honest, and listen, we had one go for us last week, but I do feel it was a penalty shout. I think we've seen them so many times.
We deserve it. We deserve that penalty.
But we won't see one for 3-4 weeks now. Yeah, because of last week. I'm sure that has something to do with it. We got 3 unnecessary bookings quickly. That cannot happen. Then they hit the bar. The start of the second half was not good. Reese, did you want to add anything else, mate? I asked you about Onana. You got anything else to add after we move on?
I thought his position was still as impressive as it was against Wolves, to be fair. I thought like the goalkeeper's position definitely was strong. Few risky passes here and there. One nearly backfired. I think it was for Charleston in the centre stage as well at the time. If that had been less crisp as it was a crispy pass. If it wasn't as crisp, that's an interception. I think that would have been 1-0. But the remainder of the game, passing was fine, position was fine. It's just unfortunate the team let him down, to be fair. The team let him down when it mattered most.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford a little bit. Obviously not found a scoring feat yet. Looked pretty poor both games, particularly today. Very frustrated when he was hooked off around the 60th minute or even later than that, wasn't it? Marcus, what do you put that down to? Is it just a lot of people talking about the fact that he's not really a number 9? We've had this conversation so many times. We're waiting for Højlund to become fit. Needs to be on the left-hand side. Probably would be a better impact than Garnacho. He looked better today, Garnacho. Still not quite on it. But give me your thoughts on his performance, Marcus Rashford, today.
I think today he was awful. I can't decide which performance was worse, today or Wolves. It's tricky, but I'm surprised Erik ten Hag took so long to take him off. And I think his frustration had more to do with playing through the middle than it did with coming off. I think Rashford just does not like playing through the middle. He's even said it on the interview he did with Gary Neville. I can't remember if it was on Sky Sports or what platform, but he did an interview recently. Yeah, the overlap, where he was talking about how, he's becoming more tolerant of the number 9 role, but he doesn't like playing there. And it's funny because Mbappe has a similar problem. I think he recently went on international duty for France, and he was asked in a press conference a question about playing for France, and he basically said something to the effect of, I don't like playing through the middle because for PSG. But when I play for France, I play out wide. I get more freedom. I get to use my pace more, etc., etc. I face the goal a lot more, and I think Rashford's the exact same. He's a player who needs to be facing the goal. He's a player who needs to run into space. He's very physical, very athletic. But you can't get away with that when it's the only option, because then it's predictable. When all three of your front three are relying on the same ball over the top, then all the opposition have to do is stop that ball over the top. Yeah, it's a different story if you have a striker in the middle and then you have somebody on the right who's good with hold up, and now you've got a dynamic front three where it's unpredictable. And then, as Bruno Fernandes or Mason Mount or Casemiro, when you look up to play a pass, you've got 3 distinct options in any given situation. You can either ping that long ball over the top, play it to the guy on the right who can hold it up, or play it through the middle to somebody who can just hold it up with his back to goal. But we don't have that. So every time people look up, it's that same ball to Rashford, and it just doesn't work. The last time I think it worked really well was against Arsenal at Old Trafford when we won 3-1. Since then, Rashford through the middle just has not looked good. But with all of that said, I'm not going to start turning on Rashford because I've been down this road before, and he always ends up scoring. I was going to say
it's not his fault, and it's not Ten Hag's fault, is it? Unfortunately, injuries are keeping Højlund out. A lack of signings for number 9, keeping another option there. But go on.
You see, last season I would have said it's not Ten Hag's fault, but this season, I can't, for me, just play Sancho. Just play anyone else. Play anyone else in the middle.
Who would you play instead?
Heck, play McTominay through the middle. No, I'm just kidding. But
I
would have played Sancho.
To be fair.
Yeah. No, but I'm being serious. I would have tried Sancho through the middle. You know, he couldn't have been much worse than Rashford. And I'm not saying that starting Sancho fixes our issues. I'm not being reactionary or flippant. I'm just saying that this front three currently does not work. So you have to change something. By process of elimination, the only other player who is in shape, who's been playing well, is Sancho. You know, alternatively, you'd start Martial, but I don't know what the deal is with him. You know, Erik ten Hag, for whatever reason, clearly doesn't fancy him, and he didn't really play through preseason. So you can't exactly just throw him in to a game against Spurs away from home. So the only other logical choice would have been Sancho. And I thought Sancho looked decent when he came on again today, even against Wolves.
In both games.
He looked, yeah.
I've seen a lot of people talking in various chats and also on Twitter as well. To your point exactly, and I'll come to you on this, Kai. Sancho has come on, really changed the game. Look good. Look more hungry than anyone else at the top. And you know, he had a reasonably okay pre-season as well, and it's very bizarre to not see him start yet. Is that more to do with the fact that maybe, I mean, we don't know, but is it that he isn't appreciated enough from Ten Hag? Maybe doesn't have that trust in him as much. Would you have liked to have seen him start today?
Is that question for me? You just asked the least Sancho fan here.
Okay.
Well, to be fair, it's the same outcome. Like, for me, Ten Hag tried something in preseason, play Sancho false nine. I thought if you try things, then you probably are going with, you know, that. He didn't really play Rashford, you know, at 9 the whole time. He played Sancho, so we thought we are gonna see something. So that's what I thought. And then if he doesn't, then of course it means there's something that he's seen that he's not a fan of. But I feel like at the end of the day, some of the players that we bring on, the margins in which they can improve us in whatever moment of the game is just still not good enough. So you're looking at the game state, right? If you say Sancho looked bright and whatever, that is the issue with a lot of our players, right? We like the kids call it Bright FC or whatever, because you know there's a lot of and I don't know, it concerns me because we want the players to do well, so of course we support them, but deep down all of us know that these players are not good enough to a certain degree to be able to do what we need to challenge anybody. So inherently, you see it when we play the big teams, that the way that they keep the ball away from us, it's just exactly that. It's just that. Just so even if Sancho comes on, that margin is not big enough, right? It's an improved performance from his last. So he's just playing against himself the whole time. It's not an improved performance compared to some of the Spurs that are, you know, playing, or some of the, you know, all of that. So like right now I have to dream and think, what do the next 5 weeks look like? Or what do the next 4 weeks look like? And they just never look great because we know what we're going to get, sort of. And that's why we should have had a transformative window, I think, where we bring people that we know that when they're coming off the bench as well. Like when last, guys, we have not been excited for a guy coming off the bench like he's going to change the game. It's always 3 guys or 2 guys coming on because we've got to change the whole way that we play, right? It's, you know, Weghorst and Rashford subs vibes or whatever. So yeah, Sancho, he played, he looked bright, he ran past somebody like for the first time, you know, in a while. That's decent. But what did he create? I looked at these guys and I said, 60 million Mount, 60 million this guy, 100 million Anthony. And I'm like, Anthony, you kick the ball too soft for a 100 million player. You cut in too weak for a 100 million player. And you also, the entire aspect, you don't have enough fear. You don't provide enough fear for a 100 million player. So people in our language, like I think maybe Marcus will understand, we call it ukudelela, right? You I don't know how to explain it, to
show a bit of
translate it,
disrespect,
but it's to disrespect. Everyone disrespects our players because they're like, this guy here. Nah. And it's like whenever they come into the team, everyone says, I don't rate this guy. And you hear Eddie Howe says, These guys over here, they're talking about nah. You know, in the first 5 minutes, go out there and run after them. And then all of a sudden, we shake. Guys are just running.
Yeah.
It's just waves. It's just waves and waves of attacks, and we can't handle it. 2-0 down,
That's what
3-0 down.
that's
And
literally what it looks like against Wolves.
yeah,
They just
exactly. And that's what
Yeah.
it looks like against Wolves. Cunha, one man by himself. It looked like Adama, reincarnated. Zoom. And that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying we don't provide enough. Even Casemiro is beginning to lose a little bit of that flavor of the tackle is coming. Guys are turning him. Nutmeg, zoops. And I'm like, this is Casemiro. Has anyone ever tried a nutmeg on this gin? What is going on here?
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't have done it when he was wearing that white shirt.
That's what I'm saying, right? So I feel like there's a lot. Even Bruno is so good, right, in his own right, but does not provide the same fear of this man's about to provide an assist, cover the gaps. No, guys are just like, it's fine. If he gets Rashford through on goal, 1 out of 9, guys. 1 out of 9.
Yeah.
Let's just try to do something else. Sorry, I said a lot, but that's what I feel.
No, I just want to add to your point. I do agree with you a lot on what you say, but for me, it's about just applying perspective, right? So what I've learned with Jadon Sancho, because I even put a tweet about this a while back saying that he does need to be more direct, he does need to be more influential, more impactful, blah, blah, blah. But today, we did create enough chances to win that game. We just didn't take those chances. And in the moments shortly following those chances, what we really needed was someone on the pitch who just kept things tidy. So I look at a player like Sancho and I'm like, man, I feel so bad for taking you for granted under Oli, because when you used to come on under Oli, I was the same guy sitting here saying, but what does he really do? You know, he's like a 75 million pound player. He doesn't really do much. But I'm like, actually, just bring him on, because just keeping things simple, it's like such an important thing that goes unnoticed. And beyond that,
bro.
No, I get it. Like, obviously, you don't pay 75 million pounds for somebody to keep it simple. But we're in this room now. We're here now. We can't rewind the clock and be like, okay, Dortmund, can you give us our money back? Here's Sancho. We can't do that. So we're in this room now. So now that we're here, what is the best possible decisions we can make with the current circumstances we have? And is Ten Hag making the best possible decisions with the tools he has? For me, the answer is no, because every time Garnacho starts, he always starts on the left, which means you displace Rashford, which means by process, like just by logic, you're taking one of your most influential players in terms of goals. You're moving him into a position where he's even worse and he's weak and he's ineffective, just to accommodate a player who's not even ready to start at this level. Make it make sense. And then on the other side, you're playing someone just because they're your marquee player. Let's keep it a buck. Anthony is Ten Hag's guy, so he's going to keep starting him the way Maguire was Ollie's guy. You know, Jose had his guys, Van Gaal had his guys. All managers have their guys that they stick by no matter what, because it is what it is. So my thing is, like, there just needs to be an element from Ten Hag of here, listen, this is not ideal, but I'm going to compromise some of my ideas here and just focus on, you know, just meeting finding a compromise between wanting to play a certain way but also needing the results short term, because I can live with bad performances if we win the games. I can live with it. What I can't live with is bad performances and then stubbornly continuing to experiment and then start, you know, it starts costing us with the results, because then it's like, you know, what am I supporting? You know, at least give me something to hang on to where I can be like, you know what, we didn't play well, but at least in the first half we did what we needed to do. It was a stinky second half, but we got 3 points. We move on to the next.
Can I ask you guys?
Something tells me, just very quickly, something tells me that you two are going to be absolute sublime watch. It's been fantastic listening to you, and when we get those previews started, I'm certainly going to be tuning in as well. Just very quickly, I'm going to come to Reese. Paul Reese has been in the corner here whilst we've been listening to you in awe, on the left hand side here. Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe, guys. Obviously, a disappointing day today. Obviously, a loss, only 3 points on the board, but a long season ahead of us. And obviously, as I said earlier, Ten Hag now needs to start making his money, make some changes, change some things in training, whatever that might be. But yeah, I just wanted to come to you, Reese, on obviously we've spoken a bit about Rashford. I wanted to come to you on Anthony and Garnacho. These two obviously spoke about Anthony being Ten Hag's man, going to struggle to drop him, but he was pretty poor today. I know he had the effort, His tracking back wasn't as good. He didn't have that killer instinct, and he's so one-dimensional. And I think we saw that hugely today. But yeah, sort of give me your thoughts on him and also Garnacho, as I know Garnacho is your boy.
I'll say exactly what I said on Saturday night. So let's just go into the time machine, roll back what I said. One of them's playing too deep, the other's playing far too high. In reverse today, it was both of them were playing far too high and couldn't be bothered to do any defensive duties. As far as I'm concerned, the two of them, they dropped. Like I would drop them both next game. Like Ten Hag needs to get away from his men. I completely agree with Marcus and Kai on that comment. To be fair, I think a manager is always going to be stubborn to certain players they like. But if you are consistently choosing and willing to do this, then you are not going to learn from your mistakes. Unless one of them actually participates in defending consistently, we are not going to move forward as a team. Like I like Garnacho, I think he's fantastic. I like Anthony, but yes, the one-dimensional is clearly showing. Didn't use his right foot once today, apart from sprinting. Probably didn't even use his right foot to kick at a player, which even I would have kicked a player with my weaker foot just because if people are annoying me, I'm still going to stand into them. But that's really alarming, like for the two of them. And I said it on the previous show as well. You can't play both of them in the same team. It does not work. You've got to have a change in personnel because they're both similar. The only difference is Garnacho's more direct for shooting, whereas Anthony's just more direct at playing with his left foot. We actually really need to consider playing Palestri as a starting right winger, in my opinion. If it's not Palestri, then maybe Sancho. But all in all, Ten Hag, I know he's got like his style and his way of playing. That's completely fine. Every now and then a manager should be willing to compromise. I think Marcus is spot on. To be fair, compromise if it's a bad result, but you're getting a result anyway, and then the performances will come. But if you're continuously willing to sacrifice results for good performances and then go into a press conference and say, actually, we played really well when you're lying anyway, not the best case scenario, I think he really needs to change it. If you're going to play Garnacho, then either Sancho or Palestri has to start on the right-hand side because you can't have two similar wingers in this, like playing in the field at the same time. It is going to hurt us completely, especially if we're hunting for a goal like massively. We were pegged back for so long that we weren't even penetrating their defence. There was ample amount of space as well from Garnacho with Porro because Porro, exactly as I said he would, he'd be playing 10, 15 yards higher than the two centre-backs because he is a natural wing-back. He will play higher. He had so much space as well, and he didn't take advantage.
And you saw that a lot in the first half, didn't you? A lot of the positive that we were getting from the game was down that right-hand side of theirs, our left. And he gave the ball away a couple of times too, didn't he?
Yeah. I would have started Rashford against Pedro Porro. If Porro's starting, you immediately should be playing Rashford because you're getting behind that space that Porro automatically leave. It's what Porro does. Like he leaves that space because he's not a defensive player, so he'll leave that because he knows his centre back will cover him, and that is exactly how he played at Sporting. It's the same way he's going to play at Tottenham. That gap is going to be there. Ten Hag, he didn't take advantage of it, and we got punished ample amount of times when Porro overlapped a win into central midfield. It was right there in the face, right there sitting in the face, and I would have hooked Garnacho to the 30th minute. After the 30th minute, I would have hooked Garnacho and I would have put Sancho on, and I would have put Rashford on the left because Garnacho after the 30th minute was gone. I didn't see him for the rest of the game because that's how bad it was in the from towards the end. And Anthony as well. I think Palestri coming on for him was right, but God forbid the manager really needs to start thinking about his starting, especially in certain opposition. It's the same names all the time. He's not changing, and I'm like. We've seen this under Solskjaer as well. We saw this briefly under Rangnick. We saw this under Van Gaal, Mourinho. And the same thing always happens. It will annoy the fans. The fans will consistently call it out, and the manager will not listen. And we all know what happens when the manager doesn't listen. The manager gets the hook. I do not want to see rinse repeat of another manager. But he has got to learn from this. Because if he doesn't, he's in massive trouble.
He used to do the same thing. He used to do the same thing at Ajax, but the difference is at Ajax he won the title and he got them to a Champions League semi-final. So you're allowed to have favorites when you win trophies. But under the current circumstances, yes, we won the Carabao Cup, but he's going to be in some very sticky, territory soon if he doesn't change. And just on Reese's point about Porro, like not just Porro, but Basuma, Son, Madison, I thought were outstanding. Now, Madison and Son didn't start well, but they grew into the game, and that's what was scary for me, right? They were non-existent in the first half, but as the crowd started to get up for it, you could just almost see the Spurs players growing in confidence. And what scares me so much about this team is how easy we transition from being in control to out of control just like that. It's really, really, it's frustrating, but now it's starting to go beyond frustration because I've seen it all before. It's just like, you start to wonder sometimes, like what does it come down to? Because and I know you shouldn't really think like that, because obviously it's not just one thing, it's a collective of issues. But surely this has to be beyond tactics. Surely it has to be beyond training. Surely there has to be fundamentally a mentality issue within the core of that dressing room that starts with the players who've been here for a long time, because again, I bring this up, and I apologize for bringing it up if you've watched the full podcast, but like I said at the beginning, Brighton with De Zerbi and with Potter, they lost so many good players, but their principles and their ethos and the way they play, whether it's Man City or Brighton,
doesn't change.
I mean, Man City or Brentford, sorry, same thing, right? And then you look at Postecoglou and what he's done. Now, granted, people don't really respect what he did with Celtic and what he did in Australia. Okay, cool. He's doing it in the Premier League. Yes, it's only 2 games, but you can see the identity.
Yeah,
you
can.
You just
shown.
Yeah, and then you just start to wonder. Now, if I didn't know any better, I would just say Ten Hag is a terrible manager. But we've been down this road before. Obviously, he's not, because Jose wasn't a terrible manager. Neither was Van Gaal, but they both got here. And it's like, you just start to wonder sometimes as a United fan, like, what is it? Like, are we just cursed? Are we just doomed for eternity?
Could be.
Maybe we were in too many people's childhoods, and the football gods are like,
I hope not, yeah, possibly. Ten Hag has said a couple of extra bits. He said, "I'm not concerned with our attacking play, but I am by our lack of scoring. We know this. This is why we signed a striker, and obviously we've covered this tonight on tonight's show. Hopefully we can embed him into the team as quickly as possible and see those different routes in the final third at least." Right, going to come to ratings now, guys. We need to be as quick as possible, if that's all right with you guys. So not too much information and your rating, and obviously try to be fair, try not to be too damning, and try not to be too positive, because I don't think any of them deserves more than a 6 today, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's go to Onana, and I will give it to you, Marcus.
Onana, 7 out of 10. I thought his distribution was decent. There was one really good pass that I remember that he played out wide. Yeah, really good. And I know you said you didn't want too much detail, so yeah.
No, you're all right. You carry on. Go on.
Yeah, but no, I was just going to say, like, I saw so many sarcastic tweets about, I thought Onana was supposed to revolutionize the way we play. And it's just like, well, yeah, obviously he's a goalkeeper. He's not going to change our midfield, but he definitely has had an impact on the team. Like, it's refreshing to see a goalkeeper who doesn't, like, players are scared to press our goalkeeper. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but there's always there's never a committed press. There's always a hesitation, like, oh, what's he going to do? And then as soon as they get drawn in, he releases. Anyways, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I did say no more than 6, but I think you're right. I forgot about Onana for a second there. Probably the only player that deserved a bit more. The only one. Absolutely spot on. Kai, I'm going to come to you on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, please, buddy.
Aaron gets it's a tough one, but for me, I mean, he's getting caught back post 18 seconds in the game, like, so he has to get a 5. Like, he was just average today. Like, he wasn't terrible, he wasn't bad or anything. It was just a lot of it was
And I absolutely agree with you. He didn't really not the same as what we saw in the last 6 months of last season, is it? But absolutely right. It was a very average game today. Moving on to Rafael Varane, Reece.
4. Didn't really do anything, but again, it's the centre backs. It's not their fault, but just collectively they were caught out too much. 4, and I give the same score for Martinez, to be honest.
Yeah, Marcus, do you give the same score to Martinez too?
Yeah. I mean, okay, well, I would give him a 5, just to be a little less harsh. But yeah, I didn't think Martinez was on it today. I don't know, like Martinez just looked off today. I mean, even it's not like specific errors that he made or moments. It's more just the general demeanor, the lack of intensity.
Yeah.
And there was so many moments where him and Varane were not on the same line when we're defending in transition. They were just all over the place. Specifically him though. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Kai, you spoke a lot about the fullbacks today, so I'm going to give you Luke Shaw. Maybe. Oh, he's here.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yeah, like a 5, 4, 4, 4.5, 4.5,
That's fair.
4.5, because he was also getting caught out the other side as well. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you're beginning to see it, but in the final third is beginning to be very, very predictable / limited / gives nothing. He actually really dodges a lot of criticism in the final third, to be fair. For a person with as much attributes as he has, it's almost nothing happening down the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And then when it's defending, it's not proactive. It is backing into your own box as well. So, yeah, I don't know. It's also he's in a
Kulusevski had him twice in that game. From what I remember.
Nah, Shaw was awful, man.
and there's no help, of course, because we don't have because Casemiro is probably getting pulled to one side and not the other side, so we don't have someone helping Shaw as well. So it also looks real bad because the pass just goes right by Shaw.
Our wingers, besides Anthony, our wingers don't really track back anyway. So Shaw, that makes it look even worse on Luke Shaw because when there's the double team on the left back position, suddenly it doesn't look so bad.
And he dived in twice for some chance in that first half. Huh?
Yeah, I think the I'd like not to drag this out too much, but I think Shaw would actually do much better playing centre back than he does left back, because at least when he's playing as a centre back, he doesn't have that responsibility of having to be as aggressive. A couple of times last season where he had his best games, I thought was through the middle, not out wide. But anyways,
yeah, right. Let's do the next 6 players with just a score and one sentence, and the sentence doesn't have to be any more than maybe 8 words. Okay. Not a really long sentence. So I'm going to come to you first, Reese. Casemiro.
5, he was caught out. Not his fault. Dents was not helping. Midfield sucked.
That'll do. Moving on to Mason Mount, Marcus.
5. Not enough for a marquee signing, wearing the number 7 shirt.
Okay, good one. Kai, Bruno Fernandes.
2.5. Shocking. Absolutely shocking performance from my captain for the rest of that game.
Love
Sorry,
that. I think we all got... No, it's all right.
Sorry.
It was really, it made me chuckle, so thank you very much for that. And I think we were all caught out. Our faces, you might have to rewatch that again by the 2.5.
That's brutal honesty. At least it's not me for a change.
I don't think I've seen such poor games back to back from Bruno Fernandes, at least for a long while, at least.
And Mark, the thing is, you want to be angry with him, not angry at him. And I find myself being angry at him because I'm like, hey, bro, stop doing that, or get the game, stop complaining. But I want to be angry with him, right? I want to be passionate, like with the fans, like raw, raising their hands and stuff. But it's really like these days,
I agree. I know Mark wants to move on, but the one thing I want to quickly say is, and Mark will agree with this because it was in the group chat, is that situation in the box that could have been a penalty to Tottenham, it all came from a Fernandes pass from the outside of his foot, which was completely unnecessary. Martinez would not need to take out Romero if it hadn't been for Fernandes' stupidity. Like, there was no need.
Right, the same again for the last 3 players, and we're going to end the show, guys, quick as you can. We'll start with Anthony, and I'll come to you then, Reese, for that one, please.
For me, the best out of the 3 attackers, but again, that doesn't say much. Didn't track back enough, so I'm going to be brutally honest. To my guy, he gets a 3.5.
Okay, some very low scoring today, guys. Right, moving on to Garnacho, Marcus.
Well, if Anthony's the best and he's a 3.5, then, if my math serves me correct, he has to be lower. But, 3. Garnacho was... I don't think he should have started today. I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kai, last but not least, Marcus Rashford, please.
did not have the right facilities
For that big man.
for a Premier League game. Yeah, for that big man, and for that that's why you say Garnacho shouldn't have started, because he doesn't have the right facilities to be starting a
Yeah.
Premier League game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have Harvey Barnes' spice and physicality, you're not ready yet. So, anyways, Rashford was the same today. Actually, he looked like he just signed for Forest, and it was his debut. And yeah, that's what it looked like sometimes. 2.5 as well, with Bruno.
Yeah. So very, very low scoring today then, guys, but I can understand your thoughts and feelings with that one. We're going to wrap it up there, guys. Really appreciate for you getting involved today. Thanks for liking as well. If you haven't done so yet, please do. If you're new to the
I hate
channel,
Mark
obviously
doing that
make sure you hit that subscribe button. Really, really important. Boys, it's been considering we've lost 2-0, it's been quite a fun one today, and I really appreciate that. And of course, always great to listen to you, and great to have you back on, Kai, as well, my man. As I said, big shows coming up. We're probably going to be doing another preview. Hopefully we're getting Ben Jacobs on. I need to talk to Keane about that one, but I know that it's still a bit poorly, and it's not been easy to sort that one out. But of course, preview, reaction again after the next game, and yeah, we will see you next time.